It's Sunday the 7th of May, almost midnight. The results are in for the second round of the French presidential election, and in the end it was a fairly comfortable win for the centrist Macron against the far-right National Front. Macron got 65% to Le Pen's 35%. For some instant analysis of the results, I spoke with Aurelien Mondon, senior lecturer in politics at the University of Bath. Here's the interview. Macron has won. Are we celebrating the defeat of fascism today?
There's no victory here, really. I mean, I think it's a sigh of relief, of course, and it's much better to have Emmanuel Macron than to have Marine Le Pen. But is it good for the left? Certainly not. And it is only the start of a battle. And I think there is hope. There is a lot of hope, actually, from the first round. But what we need to do now is to go back to that first round and to go back to what happened in this first round and the fact that the return of politics on the left has prevented Marine Le Pen from winning. But, we saw that Mélenchon, despite all his flaws, despite not being the best person to lead a communal left, to call it this way, despite all this, he's managed to actually get 20% of the vote and to bring many people out of abstention and to bring many young people, many working class people back to the left, people who had deserted it. So I think there's hope, but it's not a victory, no.
Could you talk us through some of the main events that have led up to this Sunday, just from the last few days?
In France, what you get during between the first and second round is a debate between the two main contenders, the two people who are fighting it off. So it's traditional in France, and it's usually huge, and it's usually the two candidates showing their project for France. It's usually quite positive. It's trying to kind of get people behind their back, behind them to support them, and it's obviously trying to get people who didn't vote for you in the first round to vote for you in the second. In 2002, when Jean-Marie Le Pen got to the second round facing Jacques Chirac refused to have a debate with Jean-Marie Le Pen because he said, "There's no point. There's no debating with the far right. This is pointless." However, in 2017, things have changed. We have had 15 years where the Front National has been normalized because of Nicolas Sarkozy, in particular in 2007, and how he went to get the Front National voters one by one, to quote him. And then with the Socialist Party, who hasn't done much more to denormalize the Front National and its discourse. And so in 2017, Macron had no choice but to debate Marine Le Pen. Had he not debated her, he would have looked weak, particularly as Emmanuel Macron is not a politician, he's never been elected, he's not a professional politician. Therefore, people would have said, well, what are you going to do when you're going to have to debate Putin, or when you're going to have to debate, Trump, or to talk to Trump, or to talk to Putin? So he had no choice, and so he did this debate, and that was just awful. From the first minute when Marine Le Pen opened her mouth, she just attacked him. She made allegations, threats. It was all negative. It was all apocalyptic. It was about conspiracy theories. There was no explanation about what a project was, because there's no project really behind the Front National. It's just discourse. It's just anti-immigration. It's just cheap nationalism and xenophobia. And I think she really put a massive dent in 20 years of normalization of the Front National. Everyone was expecting her to look presidentiable, to look calm, to look composed. And she just went on the offensive and, calling him part of the establishment. And while this could have worked if Macron had been part of the Socialist Party or part of the center-right, fine. But obviously he's not. He's not a politician and things like that. So therefore, her attacks just didn't work. Of course, he's a banker. Of course, he's very much part of the social establishment, but not the political one. And that completely backfired. Even her supporters on the far right, on the far right, just were dismayed at how poor she was in this debate.
So Marine Le Pen, when she conceded defeat, noted it was a historic score for the Front National, and also that she planned to transform the party so that it could become the main force of opposition. Do you see that happening? Do you see Le Pen moving the Front National into being the greatest opposition to Macron?
Well, that depends. I doubt very much she will be able to. And, there are two things that could prevent her from doing this. The first one is the more hopeful one. The first one would be a return of the left. With Mélenchon, with Hamon, who also ran, despite being part of the Socialist Party, he ran a very kind of left campaign compared to what we saw under Hollande, for example, but also with Poutou, with Arto. If you add up all these people, it's 30%. Of the population, plus many other people who might have abstained, who actually might turn up if they see that this left has a chance. So, the more hopeful way to kind of combat the Front National, of course, is to provide an alternative to it. But the other thing that makes me think that the FN might not be in for such a good time in the coming months and years is the reaction of some of the Front National leaders, and particularly Marion Maréchal Le Pen, who is Marine Le Pen's niece, and Jean-Marie Le Pen's granddaughter, who's much more radical right, who she's much closer to her grandfather's line in many ways. And she didn't turn up in Paris. She didn't come to Paris tonight. She's in the south, where when she's campaigning for herself. And she commented about the results being disappointing, actually, and saying that we will need a period of reflection. So what's happening, if you want, with the Front National at the moment is you have two visions that are competing. There's the vision that is of a traditional Front National, which, let's remember, in 1988, when Jean-Marie Le Pen was towing a neoliberal line, was still worth 4.5 million votes, which is still huge. Yeah, it's still half, the vote that Marine Le Pen, just under half what Marine Le Pen got tonight in particular circumstances, and more than half what she got 2 weeks ago on her own. And this vote is still there, and it's a vote that is maybe kind of lower middle class, traditional far right supporters, people who are deeply homophobic, people who are very traditional, people who are less for a reconstructed far right. And of course, then there's the other line, the line of Marine Le Pen, of Florian Philippot, which is much more kind of reconstructed, maybe trying to work more on the social chauvinism line, and trying to tap into the working class areas of France with more or less success, really. And this is a massive ideological stretch. You can't keep doing this. You have to choose eventually, and that's what we saw in this second round here. Marine Le Pen tried to tap first into the Mélenchon electorate. She didn't do very well. Then she tried to tap into the Fillon electorate, but I think it was too late. And actually, if we look at the early polls that have been done regarding the vote tonight, the suggestion is that about 25% of the Fillon supporters, the center-right supporters, turned to Marine Le Pen, while only 12% of Mélenchon supporters turned to Marine Le Pen. So I think there will be a lot of criticism of the Front National. The Front National has said, well, Marine Le Pen has said, Florian Philippot has said that there would be a new party with a new name and so on and so forth. Well, I'm not sure everyone in the Front National will be happy with this. And I could see some people in the Front National going their own way and keep going with the Front National, And if you get one Front National and another whatever Marine Le Pen party, you split 7.7 million votes. And, even if you take 2 million votes away from Marine Le Pen, even if you take 1 million votes away from Marine Le Pen, she doesn't get to the second round in the presidential election. So that could make a massive, massive difference, I think. And whether she has enough scope to actually recuperate these million votes in the center-right or the disillusioned working class, that's a big gamble.
Do you think it was a mistake for Mélenchon to not back Macron more openly?
Really, I mean, Mélenchon said very clearly that he wanted people to vote against Le Pen. I think that's as clear as it gets, right? I think it was very much a catch-22. But who knows, right? If he had called to vote for Macron, it might have angered quite a few people who might have turned to Le Pen, otherwise. So, I think it's too hard to say, and I think it's hard to know what would have changed if he had called for Macron. And we saw that actually it didn't have a huge impact, because 65% for Macron is actually not what anyone expected. We expected a lot less, I think.
And what do you think will be the priorities for Macron over the next, I'm going to sound American and go for the next 100 days?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see who he nominates as his prime minister. So he said he would do this on I think next Sunday when he becomes officially president. And I think that will already send a big signal, right? Because he could nominate the François Bayrou, who is a center-right candidate who kind of joined him very early on in the campaign, a former presidential candidate many times, and that would send a signal to the left-wing electorate, of course. So he could nominate someone from civil society, he could nominate someone from the center-left, a former socialist. So I think it will tell us a lot about his strategy. He might try and pass a few laws in the meantime, and again, that might say quite a few things. To be honest, I think what he's going to focus on really is the legislative election and field as many candidates as possible. He said he would field 577 candidates, so one in every constituency. It's a lot of people to find, and you need to find a lot of serious candidates when you start from scratch. Let's not forget that 2 years ago no one knew who Macron was, and 2 months ago few people thought he would be where he is today. So it's pretty crazy, right?
Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for talking to us so soon after the results. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Cool. Bye.